Us Blue Archive Global players are celebrating the New Year in July, as the New Year's Rhapsody No. 68 event is back, marking the return of the New Year versions of my favorite group Problem Solver 68, with New Year Aru's and New Year Mutsuki's limited rerun banners, as well as New Year Kayoko's, New Year Haruka's, and New Year Serika's banners. I will be covering New Year Aru, New Year Mutsuki, and New Year Serika in this video, but fear not, as I will be making a separate review video for New Year Kayoko and New Year Haruka, which should be uploaded a day after this video is released, I hope. But anyways, here is a short review on New Year Aru, New Year Mutsuki, and New Year Serika. We'll start off with the leader of the notorious Problem Solver 68, it's our adorable girl failure, New Year Aru. She looks as elegant and beautiful as ever in her kimono, though it definitely cost her life savings, so sadly my girls are gonna have to live in the park like a bunch of hobos again. But it's worth it cause she's absolutely stunning and cute in that kimono. She is a limited yellow DPS striker with blue armor who has D combat power in urban terrains, B in field, and S indoors. As usual, she uses the standard DPS equipment set. Let's talk about her skills. New Year's Aru 6 cost EX deals damage to one enemy, which then ricochets to nearby enemies up to 11 times. And she also consumes all evil deed stacks to generate a certain amount of cost. Her basic skill deals damage to enemies in a circular area every 30 seconds, her enhanced skill ups her max HP, and with her sub skill, Aru gains an evil deed stack for every 6 enemies defeated by herself or her allies, with each stack decreasing a percentage of her defense. And the number she can hold is dependent on the skill's level. At UA 40, she gains extra attack speed on her enhanced skill plus, and at UA 50, her indoor combat power improves from S to SS. New Year Aru is essentially a pretty good yellow AoE damage dealer, as she can clear a bunch of enemies with her EX skill due to its decent damage at max level, and it has the unique ability to bounce around up to 11 enemies. Not only that, her basic is also quite good since it has acceptable damage and a standard activation time of 30 seconds, contributing to her yellow mob clearing capabilities. However, her main feature is the evil deed stacks she can gain as a result of her sub skill, and it ties into her EX. First at level 10 sub skill, which allows you to hold 6 evil deed stacks, and at EX skill level 5, she can use up all evil deed stacks to generate 0.7 skill cost per stack. So if she has 6 stacks, she can regain 4.2 cost, which is a pretty high amount to recover, and it can potentially help you activate your other EX skills quicker. Thus, you would ideally want your EX and sub skills to be at max level so that you can hold 6 stacks of evil deeds and regenerate more cost. You will also typically need to gather the maximum amount of evil deeds first, then use her EX to restore part of the skill cost that you just consumed. With all that being said, New Year Aru comes with several drawbacks, one of which is her expensive 6 cost EX. Though this problem can be mitigated using units like Ui, who can halve it to 3 twice. Another problem is the requirement to gather evil deeds. Your team needs to defeat 6 enemies to gain 1 stack. So at max level sub skill, you have to take down 36 enemies to gain 6 stacks. 18 at level 1 to 3 sub skill, though you can only hold 3 stacks. 24 from level 4 to 6, and 30 from level 7 to 9. Thus, this makes New Year Aru not good for content with few enemies, since you won't even be able to reach the 36 enemy threshold. Not only that, even if there are a lot of enemies, they must be easily killable, because if not, it's gonna take a long time to accumulate the evil deed stacks, as your team won't be able to quickly take down the enemies. Therefore, all these mean that she is only useful in content with tons of yellow easily killable mobs. Now you could say, oh, why not just use her EX even when she doesn't have max evil deeds? But for such an expensive EX skill, you'd be better off gaining the max amount of value from it, otherwise it'd be a waste. Other than that, like I mentioned, you would need to increase your sub skill to level 10 in order to hold more evil deeds. though the number of enemies you have to defeat increases. But not only that, it decreases the defense down she receives to 5.3% per stack, so her defense is reduced by 31.8% at max level sub skill and max evil deed stacks. That is still kinda bad, but it's better than having her defense lowered by 26.8% per stack at level 1, which means she will have an 80.4% defense down on herself. Her EX can also only reach up to 11 enemies, which pales in comparison to a traditional yellow AoE DPS who doesn't have a max number of enemies they can hit. In terms of usage, as I previously mentioned, she is useful in content with lots of easily killable yellow mobs. And the main two that come to mind are the activity report commissions and the cheese raid, where yellow AoE units are required. For that giant annoying ball, especially the indoor version, her EX and basic skills, as well as your other AoE students, can help to swiftly clear out the yellow mobs, allowing her to quickly gain max evil deeds. Then you would use her EX once again to kill the mobs, while getting back some of the cost you just used, which is especially useful since you can then activate other units' EX skills faster, particularly if theirs is also expensive like Chirino's, and regaining 1 to 2 more evil deed stacks depending on how many mobs her EX kills. Then the cycle repeats. So if you can get this chain going, she becomes a really good unit for this raid. You'd also probably need to pair her with cost reduction units like Ui, since like I said, she can cut her EX cost by half 2 times. Unfortunately though, Year Aru is only really utilized in extreme or lower for this raid, as her EX isn't strong enough to kill the mobs on insane, let alone torment, unless of course she crits. Then she can potentially take them out on insane, but knowing how inconsistent that can be, well, it can slow down your runs. It might be different with UE15 Year Aru, but don't quote me on that, I ain't too sure. And to be honest, you wouldn't want to invest too much into her anyway. Not only that, there are tons of other yellow AoE units who are better than her, and are much more preferred for this raid, like Momoi, Chirino, Iori, and even Swimsuit Hanako, who isn't even piercing. You could maybe use her in a second team for insane if you need to and don't have any other options, but you can honestly do better. Other than cheese though, she sadly isn't really used anywhere else. Overall, while Year Aru is a decent yellow AoE DPS, unfortunately she needs some time to really get going due to the difficult requirement to get her evil deed stacks. And it makes her only really used in cheese so far. And even then, she is only viable in the lower difficulties as she lacks the damage output. Plus, she is overshadowed by a bunch of other yellow AoE units. That being said, she is a limited unit, so you can pull for her if you are a limited collector and you don't have her. However, if you already own her, or you don't care about limited students, then save your paroxines for the upcoming units. Or pull for Year Kayako / Year Mutsuki and use your other yellow AoE DPS students instead. But if she is your adorable waifu, and I know there are tons of Aru enthusiasts out there, I mean I love her as well, then go ahead and pull for her. Now we move on to the Mesugaki of the group, one of the brattiest and cunniest characters in need of immediate correction, but also one of the kindest. It's Year Mutsuki, or Nutsuki, which is what we call her. She looks really cute, pretty, and funny in that kimono, and to be honest, I find it quite sexy as well. Either cause I've seen some banging H art, or it's my fetish for white-haired girls kicking in. She is a limited mystic DPS striker who wears heavy armor, and her terrain moods are as such: D combat power in urban terrains, S combat power in field, and B combat power indoors. She also rocks the normal DPS equipment set. Moving on to her skills, Nutsuki has a 2-cost EX, where she deals AoE damage to enemies in an arch-shaped area, while her basic skill activates every 50 seconds, dealing damage to enemies in a straight line, and if she has 6 imp stacks, it inflicts additional damage. Her enhanced skill increases her attack, and for her sub-skill, every 3 times her EX hits an enemy, Nutsuki accumulates an imp stack, and she can hold a max of 6. Each imp stack lasts for 56 seconds, and her crit damage is increased per stack. She gains defense piercing on her enhanced skill plus at UE 40, and her field combat power upgrades from S to SS at UE 50. She may be a brat, but New Year Mutsuki is quite a strong blue AoE damage dealer, mainly due to her EX skill. Firstly, it is very powerful as it can deal tons of AoE damage. While its multiplier might not look amazing, don't be fooled, as I personally feel it still does pack a punch, and you can constantly activate it due to its extremely cheap tool cost, allowing you to easily cycle through it while inflicting good damage. And you're able to proc it multiple times throughout the battle, thus increasing her damage output and making it very useful against groups of blue armored enemies. For those of you who still don't understand, essentially the reason why she's so good is because her EX does good damage and is cheap, meaning you constantly use her EX throughout the battle, consistently dealing burst damage, hence increasing her DPS. However, in my opinion, it has one glaring issue: its weirdly shaped AoE range. While it is huge and wide, as you can see, there's this big space between her and her EX's range. And that's where the problem lies. Because of it, her EX's range starts much ahead of her, instead of being right at her position, and this can potentially mess up your aim, preventing you from hitting all the enemies. Thus, her positioning in your team is mega important, as placing her in the right spot allows her to hit all the targets, greatly increasing the damage she deals as she mows them down. Conversely, not being able to hit all the targets can negatively affect her damage output, even if you just miss one enemy. Other than her EX, her sub-skill is pretty good too, as it does boost her crit damage by 24.6% at level 10 sub-skill and max imp stacks, which isn't a lot, but it's decent I guess. Plus, I feel the requirement to gain an imp stack is pretty simple, since you just need to damage, not kill, one enemy 3 times with her EX to get one. So, since a single use of her EX is about 5 hits, you need to damage around 4 enemies to gain max imp stacks. Finally, her basic might take some time to proc at 50 seconds, it also deals pretty good damage, and if you have max imp stacks, it hurts the enemy even more, improving her DPS. As a strong blue AoE damage dealer, Mutsuki is obviously excellent for blue AoE content, where her role is simple: constantly use a cheap powerful EX throughout the battle to demolish the blue mobs and for easier rotations. Though again, you need to place her in the correct position in your team so that she may hit all the enemies, increasing her damage output. This makes her useful in certain joint firing drills and raids like Pararodzilla, Gauss Phase 1, Grand Assault Blue Armored Kaiten Phase 1, and Blue Gregorius. For Blue Kaiten Phase 1, especially in the field version, if placed properly, her EX can actually hit all the ranges, and she is often used in a lot of players' insane/torment teams. The same goes for Blue Armored Greg, where again her EX's range is so wide, it can hit the choir members all at once, both the middle and even the ones on the side, destroying them. She can also be brought into your Gauss teams to deal with the minions in Phase 1, so that your units can focus their attention on him and not die to them. And lastly, her best raid is actually Field Pararodzilla, since her EX can hit all of Pararo's minions if positioned correctly, though not even the tiny Pararos. Plus, her damage in this raid significantly improves if she's at UE 40, as she gains additional defense piercing, which is extremely helpful because the giant chicken and his children all have very high defense. However, while Mutsuki is a great unit for any difficulty in this raid, she is now mostly utilized in Torment as a secondary DPS for one of your teams, since Hinata has taken over as the main damage dealer, especially on Insane and lower. But that is not to say that you can't use Mutsuki in those other difficulties, cause you certainly can. For example, if you don't have/can't borrow Hinata. Other than these raids, she should probably be useful for Blue Armored Cheese when it releases, and personally, I believe you can also actually use her in certain raid content where she can still dish out decent damage, like regular field Kaiten. Finally, a lot of you may know that Mutsuki was also a vital unit for last season's PvP, since the enemy students were split into these two lanes, and her EX can hit all of them, including the backline units. Overall, Mutsuki is a great blue AoE damage dealer, and in my opinion, she is definitely worth pulling for if you're looking for one. She is also a limited unit, which is why you may pull on her banner if you don't already have her. Though, if you do, while UE40 is worth going for, I personally don't think it's a must-have unless you're going to attempt Insane/Torment Peroro, which is where her extra defense piercing is most effective. Nevertheless, you may also skip her if you do own her or you don't plan on doing Torment Perorotzilla, since that is where she is mainly used right now, and you may replace her with other blue AoE units like Hinata, Swimsuit Koharu, or the Ibuki Iroha combo when it arrives. And this also applies to the other raids that she is good in, where you can just use other blue AoE students instead. Not to mention, with the upcoming limited 3rd anniversary units, and New Year Kayoko being a higher priority over Mutsuki, you can skip her and just save your Paraxines, especially if you're low on supply. But if she is your favorite student, and you want this cheeky L2D so that you can give her the correction of a lifetime, then go ahead and pull for her. Finally, we got our adorable tsundere cat who's working part-time at a shrine for the bag. It's Year Serika. She might get embarrassed, but she genuinely does look cute in that Miko attire and her long ponytail. Plus, the way she earnestly works hard, especially now as a shrine maiden, to pay off Abidos's debt is always endearing. Year Serika is a yellow special supporter who has sea combat power in urban and field terrains, but as indoors. Probably because you can better discipline a cat in the house. She uses this equipment set with the boots and watch increasing her DPS capabilities. Let's take a look at her skills. Year Serika's 3-cost EX also deals damage to enemies in an arch-shaped area while decreasing their crit damage for 30 seconds. With her basic skill, she increases all allies' attack in a round-shaped area for 30 seconds every 40 seconds. Her enhanced skill increases her attack, and her sub-skill boosts all allies' crit damage resistance. Her enhanced skill plus at UE40 further provides her with extra attack, and at UE50, her indoor mood converts from S to SS. There really isn't much to discuss about Year Serika. She is a decent yellow AoE damage dealer whose EX can deal acceptable damage, has a wide AoE, and is pretty cheap at 3 costs. She can also increase your entire team's attack with her basic skill, though not by a lot, with the buff being as little as 16.4% even at max level. However, despite these, I feel that Year Serika isn't that good, since she doesn't have enough damage to really mow down yellow mobs, especially in high-end content, and she requires a lot of investment, aka UE40, cause she receives additional attack stats in order to do so, and become slightly more viable. Even then, she can only just about take them down, and I don't think it's a drastic improvement, and it still doesn't make her as strong as other yellow AoE students. In regards to her usage, her main use lies in cheese, especially indoors, where her EX can take down the yellow mobs. However, she's only really usable in the extreme or lower difficulties of this raid, as her EX is unable to take down the mobs on Insane and above, cause like I previously mentioned, she lacks the damage to do so. Even at UE40, while she does become somewhat usable on Insane, with her EX being able to kind of take them down as it is slightly stronger, nevertheless, she's still definitely not good for Torment, and it doesn't make her as strong as other yellow AoE units, who have more damage and can make your runs go smoother and faster. Plus, there are other special units who are of a high importance in this raid compared to Serika, and you would typically use yellow AoE strikers instead to get the job done with certain exceptions. Overall, New Year Serika may be a decent yellow AoE damage dealer, but there are already tons of yellow AoE units in the game, most of whom are way better than her since they deal more damage or have extra utility in their kit. And New Year Serika doesn't exactly stand out, being near the bottom of the barrel. Not only that, she requires a lot of investment to hit nearly as hard as other yellow AoE units. Thus, in my opinion, you should skip New Year Serika, save your paroxysms for future units like Makoto, who is a way stronger yellow AoE student especially for cheese, or pull for New Year Kayoko, and use your other yellow AoE units instead. Even if she is your waifu, I'd urge you not to pull for her as she will soon be farmable in the Grand Assault store, so you can just get her a lapse there. Plus, I personally feel Swimsuit Serika looks much cuter anyways. I mean, look at her, she's so cute! And that's all for this review. All in all, you may skip New Year Aru as she doesn't see much use even in cheese, being outshined by other yellow AoE units. Unless you don't have her, then you can consider pulling cause she is limited. The same can be said for New Year Serika, who currently isn't strong at all, and you will be able to get her a lapse through the GA store sometime in the future regardless. And my hope is that the devs will introduce their bomb gear so that they may become more viable. As for New Year Mutsuki, you can pull for her if you want to as she is limited and a very good blue AoE damage dealer, but again, you can skip if you have other blue AoE units to rely on or you don't intend on doing Torment Perorotzilla. Anyways, general reminder that I will be covering New Year Kayoko and New Year Haruka in a separate video, which will hopefully release tomorrow if all goes to plan, so look forward to that. But that's all from me. Let me know who you're pulling for if you are. Good luck with your pulls, and I'll see y'all in the next one.